Hello, Internet, and thank you very much for tuning into the Cloud Native FM podcast. I hope you can hear me perfectly well and fine. Do let me know in the comment if you see some glitches in my voice. So, what we are covering today, this is the first time I invited five guests in the same episode, and we will be talking about platform engineering in this conversation. I remember 2018, even Yvonne Butcher from Team Topologies came up with the phrase or defining platform as a digital platform is a foundation of self-service APIs, tool, services, knowledge, and support, which are arranged as a compelling internal product. Autonomous delivery teams can make use of platform to deliver product feature at a higher pace with reduced coordination. But now we are in 2024, and I wanted to learn from my esteemed panelist what is platform engineering now. So, for that, let me introduce my guest to you. Thank you very much, Whitney, for joining us. You are live now. Can you tell yourself?
Hello, my name is Whitney Lee. I'm a developer advocate of VMware Tanzu, and I talk about platforms quite a bit these days. I got to keynote Platform Engineering Day, actually.
Yes, absolutely. That's my favorite one. And let's get back to another guest, Kate Morgan. Can you tell us about yourself?
Hi, yeah. Thanks for having me on. Whitney, hello again. I'm Kat Morgan. I am DevRel at Pulumi and have a long background in infrastructure support and consulting field engineering type work. And now I get to live in the glue code with Pulumi IAC type stuff, orchestrating and composing all the platform things. So
Thanks, Kat, for your first appearance on this YouTube channel. I hope to meet you sometime soon again as well. So, next guest is David. David, can you tell us a little bit about yourself to our audience
Sure.
today?
My
You are
name
on
is
screen now.
Dave Stenglein. I am a solo consultant in the New York area, specializing in platforms. I have pretty long relationship with platforms. I started out as a Unix SA a long time ago, and I did a lot of consulting with cloud and Netflix stack over the last decade plus. And happy to be here.
Thanks, David. David is my one of a colleague in a platform working group, and we were spending a lot of time in there as well. So, moving on to the next final personality, Marino. I don't need you need any introduction, but still, can you give us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, thanks for having me, Simon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this panel. My name is Marino Wijay. I'm a solutions engineer at a company called Komodor that focuses in on Kubernetes reliability. But I've spent a lot of time in the networking space, so I have a lot to say about what we're doing here in networking and how that ties to platform engineering.
Thanks, Marino. So, thank you very much for everyone for actually accepting my request and joining us on this episode. So, I will be starting about my first question, and I will be picking up Whitney Lee for the first question. Is Whitney, you actually hosting enlightening show, and also you choose with Victor Farsik on DevOps Toolkit. And I wanted to learn from you over all of the guests appear on your show and to actually dig diving on the a lot of the different cloud native tooling today. What is platform engineering now?
So, when you opened up the stream, you talked about the team topologies version of what is platform engineering. And I think that definition stands. I think it is a foundation of AP self-service, that's part of it, of like APIs, tools, knowledge. If we want to dig into like how it's evolved since then, I'd say the platform has become an important place to add company opinion. So you're making it so the developer experience is seamless. And so the right thing to do, that being in compliance with organizational policy, is then a very easy thing to do. So one thing maybe the definition didn't say was like opinionated and easy to consume.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's perfectly well, because I think if you talk from the developer's angle, they actually quite a very nervous with all of the stuff actually came towards them, and they wanted to make them smoother for them in order to accomplish their work as well. And I think one of the definition uh, in the team topologies I really like about, I think the Manuel P.S. wrote a book on team topologies, and he said a platform is a curated experience for engineers, and that engineers are the customer of the platform. And I think that pretty much reflects what you said as well. So it meaning platform engineering still same as it before.
I think the
And now
term,
actually heading
I was going to say,
Yes, go
Marino
ahead,
brought this
Whitney.
up when we in a conversation earlier, but the term platform has become very widely used and can be conflated with a lot of other ideas. So that's something I'd like to unpack as this stream goes on too.
Yes, absolutely. And I also heard folks complaining like the platform is one of the most ambiguous term we invented to actually define something in tech.
Uh-huh.
And next question, I think like this is being David on the platform working group, and he hosts some kind of coffee chat, and we talk about a lot where this term self-service came in the platform engineering definition. I literally read during the conversation a 2018 definition of platform, and the self-service is already been there. And Kat is actually living the infrastructure world, and he happened to work with developers and engineers and the infrastructure engineer. And I want to learn from Kat today, what do we mean by self-service?
Right. Okay. So compute, if you start from the ground up, is really, really complicated, right? Like trying to actually do meaningful work, especially with systems that are wildly different and in wildly different locations, can be tedious and easy to get wrong. So when we're building a self-service platform, we're really looking to make it as simple as a commodity, commoditizing large-scale compute. So when it comes down to self-service, you're looking at your target audience, your customers, and saying, how do I actually offer a very complicated thing in a way that meets the needs of my customers, gives them the power that they need to make choices for themselves, but does not overwhelm them with having to become a DevOps engineer or a large systems engineer. So if they specialize in applications development, how do I enable them to deploy their applications and give them the autonomy that they require to have a high velocity without giving them all of the foot guns in the world to go around and curse production with, right? So without setting them up for failure, how do I set them up to succeed? And that's what I'm looking for if I'm building a platform.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I'll read about 35 or 36 article on the internet, and self-service has already been there. And then I go back in 2016 when I joined my career as a developer. Then I realized why the self-service is, because in 2016, if I want to set up a VS Code extension to be added in my system, I file a ticket for the DevOps engineer, lets me give some control to me so I can access the internet and download the extension in a VS Code so I can do my work there. So is everything ticketing based, especially because I work in the healthcare setup where we don't have permission to access internet online. So we going for the ticketing system to ask for the permission to install something and actually run or actually do cloning on there as well. And then I like that's completely make essence, because we don't want to make any new ticketing in place, because that takes a lot of bandwidth for us as well. So moving on to the third question, and that will be actually for the Whitney. Whitney, it's your turn, the third question.
Oh, to give the question. Got it. Well, what I would like, I would like to talk to Marino about, in general, I know you do a lot, you're solutions architect, you're a network networking guy. Like, what are some operational challenges that you see with platform engineering?
I think there are two. The tooling aspect. There are so many different systems and tools and different versions of tools, different iterations, and even opinions of how those tools should be used and built. And then the associated authentication piece as well. So if you have all of these tools, chances are they aren't federated in some degree or some form, and they all have their own like respective logins. And what's challenging about that is if you're trying to construct a platform, there isn't any sort of uniformity with respect to the tooling or even those logins or authentication approaches. So there have been approaches that have been built out, but there's nothing that's concrete. And I think what we're really driving towards with this whole platform engineering mindset is a consistent, agreeable model that says, here, this is how you should run a platform that encompasses a variety of different workloads and styles and even frameworks for that matter. And I think Kat alluded to this just momentarily ago around like how we go about doing this. But it's also the idea of simplifying it for whoever's consuming this platform too. Like, how do you make it easy for them so that they're not sitting there behaving as the glue to stitch every one of these pieces together? Let's take the cloud, for example. Very generic, and it also all started on premises as well. The cloud is not just like some platform that we log into and then suddenly consume. There is some compute, there's some networking, there's some storage involved, there's some layer of virtualization that's engaged as well. And all of these are tied together because as you're starting to construct one little artifact, every one of these pieces are called. But that only happens so easily today because of the engineering work that these cloud providers had put into developing this, like from the learnings, from the failures, from trying to scale to almost infinity and realizing, oh no, this is just not going to work, right? And we're trying to rebuild that model all over again on premises. In fact, we've kind of already done it, and we're recreating the problem to resolve all over again. And we've also now just created tooling and login fatigue alongside that.
Thanks, Marino. And I think like if you look at the platform, I think if there's an infrastructure automation piece, then the security piece into it, then the compliance and the governance. So there are some challenges associated to it as well. And that question will lead me think about, and that the question for the David is,
Before you move on to that, actually, there's a good point that comes out of what Marino just said is that where platforms are often represented as a way to reduce cognitive load for developers. But you could run into the problem of shoving all of your cognitive load somewhere else onto a platform team, rather than looking at your organization and deciding, how do I get the cognitive load to some sort of even level and not necessarily shove it all in one place and sort of brush it under the rug. And if you get these tool sets, which are based on demand from developers for an easy experience, we have to define what easy is. It should be in line with what they do, and what platform engineers do should be in line with what they do. And if there's more demand on one side to make it difficult for the other, you have to figure out compromises. Otherwise, you're going to end up with bottlenecks again. And that's what we're trying to avoid.
I think that's a great point. A platform team isn't responsible for all of the capabilities it's providing. What a platform team is doing is providing interfaces between the experts who actually manage the capabilities and the users. And so the platform team sits in between that. That's a great point, David.
Yes, and I have one question from Mark in the YouTube chat. Does platform engineering mean backstage? Who will be taking out?
No.
No.
So backstage is popularized. I have a lot of opinions about this because I've wanted to make a backstage for at least as long as I've been working on cloud stuff. Backstage is internal developer portal to your platform. So the idea that platform equals backstage is kind of a misnomer. Backstage, which I recently got to run with IDP Builder as part of the Kano project, I recommend it. It allows you to spin up an entire Backstage and Argo environment right in Docker locally. It is nice in terms of all of the orchestration stuff that it does. It's not just a portal into things. It allows you to unify some of the interface concerns and orchestrating templating of new things, but it doesn't run anything, right? Definition of a platform is that people need to build and run on top of it. So you can't run anything other than UIs on top of Backstage. So at most you could call it a platform for developer portals, right?
Yes, absolutely. And let's shout out to some of the people we have in the chat. Boris, thank you for joining us. He said, hi, my favorite people. And he said, cat always blows mind. And then Mark, I hope this answered your question. Thanks for joining us. And Leon says all cool people on one screen.
Holy
And then
cow. So many great people.
Carlos Santana, thanks for joining another CNCF ambassador on the chat. And Leon says that recently Marino using the summit.
You made it hard somehow. Yeah.
Oh, yes. And Carlos, I'm always watching, so represent. Thanks, Carlos, for your joining, watching us as well. So now, David, I will move to...
Carlos Santana is part of that Canoe project, by the way, that Dave just mentioned.
And I think it's called Cloud Native Operational Excellence.
That's what I was going to say. It's CNOE, Canoe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Great. So now, Javid, another question for you, because previous question we're talking about the operational challenges for the platform team that lead us to think about what are the essential leadership qualities and skills required for effectively managing platform engineering teams?
Well, I think I don't know that there's any specific skill. So I've worked in the leadership organizations and teams of small and large companies. The last company I was at that I left in 2022, there was 27,000 people, and I was 2 down from the CEO. And so I have opinions about leadership done well and done badly. And I think the choice of what kind of leadership you're going to do comes down to, are you going to be transactional, or are you going to enable and, push transformation? And that, I pretty firmly believe in servant leadership and enabling teams and being glue between your team and other organizations. Because if you're a platform organization and you're not figuring out how to serve the needs of your users and listen to them and explore what you need to build instead of deciding and building, you're going to have a lot of problems. And so the leader for a platform team should be a very product-minded person. Don't have to be a product person, but they have to be product and people-oriented. Because, there's another definition floating out there from someone, and it went out of my head, names. I'm terrible with names. But she defined it as socio-technical systems, essentially. Platforms are a way of organizing organizations as socio-technical constructs. So it's important that a leader of a platform team is in tune with that, rather than, say, a tech stack specific person or someone who really understands Kubernetes. The thing I keep hearing is there was another webinar right before this one. The tech problems are mostly solved. Like we keep resolving, and that's okay. It's engineers love resolving things, right? And new context always comes up, so you need new solutions. But we know how to do these things. What we don't know is how to effectively merge between people and technology. And so, yeah, I'd say really, really good people skills is a essential thing for a platform leader.
So when we say we want to, like, the goal of a platform is to accelerate and simplify application delivery. What you're saying, David, is that's not done with tooling. That's done with people.
No, because yeah, exactly. And I need to call out Hazel Weekly because she had that definition. It was in her presentation to KubeCon SF. Yeah, if you don't understand the lived experience of your user, it almost doesn't matter what tool you
Mhm.
put out there because you have no idea if it actually solves a problem that they have. So, you can solve problems so many different ways. As they say in team topologies, right? You have this minimum or thinnest viable platform, which could just be some documentation. If it enables people to help themselves, then that, we get a little caught up in stacks of technology. We're trying to create flow. And so if you're a small team, just documenting how to work is enough of a platform.
Cool.
Yes, I think just one phrase on this point, just a very one. I think I heard one of the Dave Farley is running a continuous delivery YouTube channel, and one of his YouTube channels he's actually describing what is platform engineering. So he mentioned that dividing teams by tools they use is not the solution. Dividing teams by tool is they use is not the solution. If the tools are the problem, learning how to use them enough to hide them is easier than building a generic solution to a specific problem. So that is, I think, a hard.
Well, I'd say that,
Yes, go ahead, David.
the idea of splitting organizations by tools is it's based on a lot of history in IT. So, you typically organize, like when I went to work in systems and Unix SA work, you had the Unix team and you had the Windows team, right? And then you had the Active Directory team, and then you had the storage team, but they weren't focused on capabilities. They were focused on technologies and dealing with ticket queues, right? So, it usually doesn't, it doesn't allow the kind of glue stuff that we're trying to create with platforms to happen if you just go off and silo people into tech stacks.
Do y'all want to, how about Marino? Do you want to talk about something you learned from, like, going to so many platform related events, like from going to KubeCon and Platform Engineering Day? Or really, this is open to anyone who's learned something cool from a public, from one of these platforms are so cutting edge. So one of these conversations, what's something you've learned?
So one thing that I've been noticing as a recurring theme is that everyone is doing one of two things: either looking at building their own platform, or they're looking to evaluate several platforms that they want to buy and then integrate into their existing environments. And one of the biggest considerations around building is that at the end of the day, you're going to just end up spending maybe way more in engineering time and money just to build that platform versus evaluation and just deciding, hey, I can probably achieve 90% of my use cases with maybe something like a managed backstage offering or something equivalent. And then that 10%, I can probably do custom work or custom integration myself. And I think it also comes down to the fact of what we're trying to platform engineer altogether. If we're trying to build some sort of developer portal or developer tool that serves up that single API that developers can consume, it almost feels like we've gone back to a little bit of that Heroku / Cloud Foundry era all over again, which which is interesting because that conversation has been coming up way more. Maybe I'm the one that started seeding it. I'm not sure, because I remember talking about this maybe 6 months ago. And now you start to see, Cloud Foundry and even Heroku be present at some of these events as well. Not because they become irrelevant, it's just that they've been ignored for some while, and they're offering up the capabilities that we want. We're just, I think, choosing to ignore them for some strange reason, because we think Kubernetes, for example, is the one-stop shop to be able to do it all.
So I actually want to jump in real quick if I can. I really like what both Dave and Marino have kind of brought up in terms of the evolution of platform engineering from our interface to compute platforms is, a ticketing system and a team of experts, because that's one interface for a business to a compute platform, to the extreme where we're looking at Heroku and saying, in theory, we can just write an application and let the platform handle all the magic, right? Which takes away all the choice and should give you a reliable outcome if it meets all of the needs that you have for the platform. But in between those two ends of the spectrum, we've gone from, AWS or the big three and other cloud providers offering various combinations of platform, and they own the platform engineering work, right? Or you shift to DevOps and say, hey, look, the DevOps hats are primarily focused on app delivery, but sometimes they're going to go in and make the cloud smaller so that they can handle it. And then now that the cloud has exploded so that it is so big, we're looking at it and saying, okay, we paid cloud providers to do platform engineering, but their platforms are too big. So now we need in-house platform teams to make the cloud smaller and consumable again, right? So the whole time, like, the end goal is to run an application that makes something easier for people. And we're looking for a way to connect business outcomes with compute platforms in all of its many forms through, the timeline of the industry. We're just renegotiating what is our interface. Is it going to be Backstage? Is it going to be an API? Are we writing, infrastructure orchestration in code? Are we just submitting an application, throwing it over the wall and saying, you guys handle that, right? Which may happen internally inside of one organization, or may happen, to a dev team throwing it over the wall to Heroku, right? So really, when we're talking about platform engineering, it's just negotiating where we draw the lines of how to make compute consumable.
Yes, and we have some question from the chat. I think someone from the previous conversation around, I think, essential leadership management is saying that DevOps at its essence can be done on a spreadsheet as the only tool.
Kat has her thumb down. What do you want to say
I'm
here?
trying to get the react, kind of like the hearts react. I was trying to get the there we go.
There you go. That's awesome.
Oh, yes. That's awesome. Yes, and one more question from, I think, Mark. Aren't silos part of every enterprises? How does platform engineering cross the silos?
Well, I have
Anyone
something
want
to
to
say
take
about that.
this?
Maybe they don't, if it's a very specialized use case. A platform is meant for broad use cases that's meant to benefit the maximum number of teams. And so if it's a very specific use case, maybe you choose to have that silo.
And I think the way that you define silo is going back to what Kat said. It's interface. It's not just the interface Backstage, the interface Kubernetes. It's also the working interface between teams. So if you have a silo whose only interface is a ticketing system, that's much more limited than a quote unquote silo that has an open API. It has like a site where you can go and find out what their backlog is and what their service levels are and how to interact with them and document. So there's I think calling them silos is kind of a misnomer. I really don't have necessarily a good alternate way of saying it. But what I would say is that you have groups of specialization and you look at how they interact with other parts of the organization, and you take on like some of the team topologies definitions of how groups of people work together. That's some of the difference here, is that platform engineers aren't just working as a new technical specialty. They're also changing the way you work within an enterprise. And that's kind of more important than like grouping together. Even if you don't individually create teams, you're still defining this thing of platform engineering. So how it interacts with everyone else is just as important.
Yeah, I actually want to like jump in on the motivation for a silo, right? Ultimately, there are two. There's really one driver for creating a silo, and that is risk, right? Because a platform engineering team is supposed to make the cloud consumable, but the flip side of that is they have to make sure that they eliminate or at least significantly reduce risk. And when you see things siloed in an organization, it is usually a fear-based reaction or an observation of risk and coordinating that risk off to a smaller unit of the organization that can specialize in handling and mitigating the risk, right? So if you see a silo, it might be an overreaction to a fear-based response, which might need some mitigation. We're all in platform engineering therapy at some point. And if you're looking at a silo, though, you still have to evaluate for what is the right amount of risk to contain in just this unit of the business, right? So
what I like about both of your answers is it comes back to what we talked to before about platform engineering being about people and about communication and not about specific tools.
Yes. And just I have one more Vamshi with us. And somehow he's in a train. So Vamshi, can you hear us? He's our fifth guest for today, but he's having some troubles because as he's traveling from there. But I can give you some intro of Vamshi. Vamshi is actually working in American Airlines. And also he presented a talk on Platform Engineering Day in KubeCon Paris. So I hope he can able to hear us, but in somehow he having some difficulties joining us. But that's a bad news for us because I want to hear from them as well on that. So Vamshi, you let us know if you hear us. We wanted to learn from you. I will get back to you as well. But one question, Leon, I said a great thing. He says, would it be a good idea to turn the speaker names on the screen? Well, somehow that is not being portraying in our screen. I don't know why. I think when he joined on the StreamYard, I think might be messed up because I missed out adding my name in there, but it usually is on there, but I need to check it out, what's happened there. And then Dan Banks says, that was me, it's correct, but I don't know what he's thinking about. And he's showing the and I think the previous two guys say DevOps isn't tooling, it's a set of behavior and practice. Tooling help it, but we lose the fundamental by being overly concerned with the implementation. So I think it's great that I think that is a similar conversation we're actually happening on the day as well. So now I move on to the next question. I think that's for Vamshi, but some us. But as you know all, there is a lot of investment being moving into the platform as a product mindset. And in the CNCF platform working group, we have been introing a lot of the industry professionals around what the platform product approaches means to them. And we do actually have a call on weekly basis around this stuff. So Jared, can you shed some light on what do we mean by product-centric mindset in platform engineering?
We're just finishing up a blog post to put on the working group blog about product thinking. And basically, it's a lot of what we talked about before with trying to find user needs as opposed to essentially coming up with solutions first. Because all technical people like to solution, right? You hear even the beginning of a problem, and you start doing pattern matching with respect to things you know about technology and start solutioning. So it's about listening and figuring out how to find value for your customers, aka users. And that doesn't always take the form that you expect in terms of, oh, I can apply this tech stack, which is why, a thinnest viable platform works. Maybe sometimes just a document is good enough to solve what their actual problem is, as opposed to building something big and new. And that, that's sort of like the product thinking approach. And there's certainly a lot more to it. But if you can listen to people, you're probably getting a long way towards, accomplishing what we're talking about as, platform as a product, because the space is very immature. Even Spotify product managers, which have been doing this for 8 years, said it's very vaguely defined what a product manager does in the platform space. So we're trying to approach it from the research perspective of finding out how people are deciding what to build, and not asking them specifically about product practices, because most people aren't doing things exactly that way, but they might be thinking in the terms that are necessary to be in a product mindset. They just might not have a name for it.
So David, I love what you said, and I agree, but it leaves me with a question that I'm actually going to give to Marino. I'm going to have Marino answer this just for the sake of spreading around the speaking love. But my question is, so say you have a platform team already, and they already have their heels dug in on the idea of tooling. They love tooling. They want to throw tools at the problem. How do you get them to adopt this more product related mindset and this people forward mindset?
So I think it comes down to the use cases behind that particular product, right? Helping that team understand the motivations behind why this product or technology space is being developed upon. But there are multiple teams. We're talking about maybe trying to build a platform with multiple different levels of specialties. And we need to take in the fact that, not everyone is at the same level of expertise across those different domains. So there needs to be some training, some collaboration that goes on. There needs to be ongoing engagement and a level of communication so that everyone is just increasing their level of knowledge at the same level, at the same time being able to just tie in ideas together. Because when you think about a product, right, and who's consuming it, there's going to be teams internally that consume it just to be able to QA it a little bit better, provide some quality assurance. But on the flip side, that's not all the real data there. We have to have end users consuming this as well. And when you have silos going on, different organizations not talking to each other, the product can't effectively move forward from a feature standpoint. And it's primarily because with those silos, not everyone has all the data. So if you can present the data to everyone, make it available to all parties or all stakeholders that are involved, decision makers, contributors for that matter, think of an open source project. All the data is there. All the contributions that go on into a product are there. And to foster that kind of mindset, that kind of style of communication is how you get platform teams to adopt that product mindset. There's probably a lot more, and I'd love to hear what even you have to say about it, or Kat for that matter.
Hey, hi guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, hi. I'm really sorry, and it's great to join you guys. I've been hearing, but I had issues joining it. And let me pitch in. I did chat. Send some comments in the chat. So the product mindset just definitely starts with thinking about the product and having the backlogs and treating your roadmaps, right? So you need to have your roadmap and what are you thinking to your product to have incorporating it, and also having some backlog. What are you building it and what you are not able to achieve it, so that, and having the metrics built on it, right? Your KPIs and metrics also needs to be built on what is your roadmap, how much we have achieved, and what is the backlog. So this is the first step for anybody who's building the product or a platform, for any platform engineering and building a product. This should be the mindset and perspective. And the second thing which comes to my mind is you need to think about the users. So, like, I have put somebody has already put in the comment already. So they've called out. You need to know what is that we are building platforms for or a product for. Who's the end users, and you need to build a feedback loop into it. So you need to go back. You need to get frequent feedbacks and see what is that you're missing in the platform and what is that I'm trying to incorporate into it. So these are two main things that definitely, when you are thinking into a product mindset, these needs to be in. And definitely the management again. See, from end to end, we are thinking about silos, right? So different silos. If I am looking into governance teams, FinOps teams, there are a lot of other silo teams that are being built into that we have to tap on and collaborate. I think someone has brought in a great point that we need to collaborate each one of it and then try to build on top of what.
So I actually have a question for Kat in terms of it seems like one of the more important things for platform teams is adoption, right? So what do you see in terms of challenges with teams with adoption and, or lack thereof, right?
Yep. Okay. So, I mean, starting just from my own personal tendencies, if I have something that works for me today, I have to be put in a really tight spot to convince myself to learn a better way. And that's the human tendency in general. So if I'm going to be convinced to try something new that affects my day job, right? Like on my own time, where it's like, hey, I just want to like start up Backstage and connect it to something, experience what it's like. And oh, there's LLMs. Can I like also make that a whole thing? It can be a very curiosity driven experience to learn something new. But especially when it comes to like prod is working, let's not change anything. There is a human tendency to be extremely risk averse. So sometimes you have to approach it with an understanding of the risk that is present. If there's a guaranteed failure in the future, a breakdown that is motivational, but you also don't want to just jump into like fear mongering, right? Like, oh no, you use this old way of doing things, everything's going to crumble and you must change instantly to this new way of doing things. It's got to be really convincing to put in the risk, to add the risk of change in order to avoid the risk of not changing, right? So if it's going to be a fear-based decision, which a lot of change in organizations are, then somehow you have to offer less risk, including the risk of change, than than the risk that you're selling they're going to encounter by not changing. I get fairly entrenched when I'm doing something that's successful for a long term. So I'm curious from the other panelists, honestly, like what is motivational to you to actually implement change, not just learn something new, but implement a change?
So, I mean, can I take a stab at it?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first part of the question, which I understood, was the adoption, right? So treating the adoption across organizations inside, the first thing is marketing. So when you treat your product and you market, when you treat your product and market inside the organization, how valuable is it, and what is the time to factor that you're reducing for an application to go to production? That helps us a lot. And as you said, risk, definitely, right? So when you when you reduce the risk of putting application in production, and how fast to cater that increased our adoption of platforms. And the second thing is the finance side of it, right? So whatever the things that you need to bring out for any LLM or anything that you're bringing it, how efficiently are you bringing it up for the teams so that they don't need to spend their time on to go back and revert it back. What is that they have brought it up? Need not go back to different teams, and so that reduced, and that has increased a lot of adoption into our platforms.
If you're talking a lot with the teams that you're trying to help when you're designing your platform, then those teams that are giving you the feedback and telling you what they want help around, ideally they would be more excited than to take on that adoption. And maybe you've only chosen like a couple of teams that are really excited to try out a platform, but then those teams, if they go well, can evangelize. Bye, Marino. Thank you for being here. Can evangelize the platform's capabilities to the other teams that are maybe more risk averse. So if you could take one team and get them excited, then they're probably more likely to listen to each other than they're likely to listen to the platform engineer.
Yeah, I like
Yes,
that social
absolutely.
engineering take.
But no, I think there's
Absolutely.
also a limit to how much you can accomplish with marketing. And marketing seems sometimes to be seen as something to make up for the fact that you didn't figure out what users need in the first place, and you
Yeah.
just need to convince them.
Yeah.
And the thing that a lot of platform teams do, even though they're offering new capabilities, they're usually offering new capabilities through a replacement for what people already do. And so some of that risk that we're talking about is actually just effort. It's not so much how much trouble there might be in terms of like outages or anything. It's just migration. And systems people have been getting users to migrate, again and again and again, and they get some fatigue over this. Like, I got to move to this new thing because you say it's going to be better. Well, who's it going to be better for, right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually know someone who works in the financial industry that said that basically the users, and he's not in tech, he's got a tech background, but he was able to talk to a user about how when they wake up in January, they know they have 9 months of migrations to do before they can just focus on their business. And, that's every year. So migrations are like hugely impactful to users. We tend to think about it from the systems and platform perspective, like, oh, I got to figure out how to support this thing, how to make it production oriented, how to deal with migrating users onto the platform, but only from our perspective, not the huge amount of disruption and opportunity cost, basically. It's always easier to stick with what you know and what you can do.
Yeah, I like
Yes.
that. Talking about the ripple effects almost of what a change in the tech stack does to an organization or to, a customer base. You have to actually retrain an organization, which might involve a lot of non-technical people changing business processes and procedures and rolling that out across the company, right? Which is a pretty big thing to calculate. It's not just engineering time to make sure that you roll everything out without an outage. It's making sure that all of the rest of the business is prepared to support the new way of work. And the same thing for customers, if you're training them on a new user interface or something like that, right? You have to actually consider whether you have the political equity to achieve the the big shiny new thing without alienating the people who have already bought into following along with the decisions you're making.
And in terms of adoption, in terms of my personal feelings, my personal behavior, like if you show me a thing that I'm excited about that I choose to use, that makes me, that's happy experience. If I'm told I have to do it this way now, then I don't like that one bit.
Yes. So just a little bit of some panelists in the chat as well. So thanks, Carlos, for answering some of the question there as well on the chat. And Andrew are saying, there are a lot of places DevOps only mean Terraform. No. I believe this will be changed sometime in near future, but it's currently too in some of the places as well. And thanks, callers, for all the chatting, and the 10 banks for answering some of the question there as well. So I think I learned a lot of the communication there as well. I just give you some prospect. I wanted to talk to about Vamshi and then David and then with all of you. I think during in 2016, in the platform engineering era, there are a bunch of organizations where have very strict environment in their development. You can't go outside, access the file system, and start doing development. It's a very restricted environment, especially in the government sector, in the healthcare sector. I happened in my story in 2016. I don't have any privileges to actually access the internet while I'm developing an application for the healthcare setup, because that is part of the regulatory system. So I believe platform engineering is a big deal for those customers, those companies, those setup, because if you eventually end up centralizing most of the things that the developers and operational teams need, and then you actually start accessing those things from your platform without going hopping into the internet and exposing the secret data into the public that the healthcare or the government section don't want them to be accessible. But I don't see any conversation happening on that front in the marketing angle of the platform engineering. So the question for me is, like, if folks who are actually in this sort of setup, what are the strategies and how they convince their internal team to evangelize platform initiative within the organization? So who will take up? So I think, Whitney, can you share some idea? Then I go to other people.
Oh, yeah. I feel like that's very similar to what we were just saying about how to, but I guess it's like, because you're giving me something, I'm excited about it. And therefore I'm going to tell other people about it. And so I think it has to do with involving users from the very beginning. As the second you're starting to plan a capability for a user, involve that user, understand what their pain points are. And then you're making something that they truly want. And then they'll naturally evangelize for the platform.
There's a model called the Cotter model, and there are many different change models out there that basically give you a life cycle to go through to kind of make change regenerative and make the process of figuring out who your early adopters are going to be, using quick wins, things like that. And, it's change for anything, the way anything is done within an organization. So, if you want to create change, there's actually a lot of literature on how to do that. There's a good book called That's Not How We Do It Here by John Cotter. And it's about meerkats, and it's really fun read.
Yes. So can you add something in?
Yeah, so previously the financial clients which I worked with was a typical kind of infrastructures where we were not able to download anything. It was given, and we were not able to work on anything that is outside available. Like when 2016 or 2015, when Docker containers were coming up, so it's like there was nothing. It's like, I need to run on my home something on my laptop, but nothing was there available now. So now I think we have gone through a lot of journey. Now the financial clients also I see has setting up like the Cloud Foundry platforms, and then now the Kubernetes has become a lot of platforms have were built on Kubernetes now is being tied into a different kind of funneling uh, methodology where a single team that does whatever the net new features that they tested out and then brought into the product categorized where all the developers can subsequently use it as soon as it's available. So the product methodology also changed a lot in that perspective. But as the other one called out, yes, definitely it's worth.
Thanks, absolutely. Thanks. I think we have 5 more minutes left to wrapping up. Really enjoyed the conversation because I have some of the questions I pick up from a lot of the different articles on the YouTube as well. But I think one of the question before I let you go, I wanted to
Let me
learn
jump
from
in if
you
I
because
can.
if somebody really Yes, absolutely.
So the thing about
Kat, can you go ahead?
adoption. Okay. So the thing about adoption is platform engineering is an entirely human endeavor. And so when you want to convince people to make a change, you have to make sure and relate it in a human story, which as a technical person, I am woefully inadequate at when I get really passionate about the tools and the tech and the interface and all of the solving problems part. But when we see real change happen with enthusiasm, it's because we're telling a human story and we're helping people achieve a desirable human outcome. That's when we get excited. It's not, oh, look, the computer takes an input and gives me an output. Like that's not meaningful, right? It's, oh, wow, generative AI just gave me a poem. What? Right? Like we're stepping into an age of a new capability that's exciting because it's a human, story. And that's the important part of platform engineering, is to never lose sight of the human story that you're building, that you're telling, that you're selling, and that you're giving to people. So anyway, I just wanted to
Kate,
for that.
how many times have you used ChatGPT today?
Oh my God.
Even when you're using ChatGPT, it's giving you more time to do things with other humans, right? So
Yep.
that's
yes.
one way to look at it.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, I think somebody said on the Twitter, I forget about the name of the person. They said, ChatGPT remove the cognitive load from us so we actually use natural intelligence more often.
I apologize. We made it so far in this panel without mentioning AI and ChatGPT, and I just went in and I completely bulldozed that amazing track record.
It wouldn't be a relevant discussion if you don't say AI at least 3 times.
Yes, absolutely. I think if you don't say AI, then it's going to be, I think it's a challenge these days without mentioning AI or something else. But I think we have 3 more left. And I just want everyone to give us 2 key takeaways on platform engineering. So people who are really new into this, they kind of get a grasp of it and start talking about or evangelizing internally within the organization. So everyone, start with Whitney. Fun 2 key takeaways on platform engineering. Then everybody else.
Well, I can't not say, after it's been the fundamental thing that platform engineering is about people. It's about communication and feedback and building what your users need, and not about tooling. And then similarly, a platform engineering layer sits between the users and the experts. So the platform engineers aren't the ones making the capabilities themselves. They're the ones making the interfaces to the capabilities. Those are my 2 things.
Yes. Kat?
Okay. So if you want to be, if you want to learn platform engineering, right, take something that feels more complicated than what you would feel comfortable with and practice with it until you can make it easy for someone less technical than yourself to consume. And just do that, whether it's taking an application, containerizing it, and building a tiny little pipeline to deploy this. Or if it's really advanced and you're looking at a ton of different Helm charts and building an entire, bare metal platform, wherever your ambition takes you, find something complicated and just practice making it simple. And that will definitely lead to success in becoming a platform engineer. And if you want to succeed at selling or, enabling others on your platform engineering skills, make sure and tell the human story, because that's where you'll actually gain adopters.
Yes, David?
So there's a popular saying in product management circles called, and it said, basically, learn to love the problem, not the solution. And that should be your guiding light when you're building platforms, because if you wrap yourself up in the solution, when that solution is no longer relevant, you won't be able to let go of it and move on. This platform engineering should be a lot of, hey, I'm done with this. Somebody else takes care of it now. And then, like everyone else has said, human factors are, incredibly important. And if you're getting into platform engineering, you really want to be able to work with people and put people first.
Vamshi?
I second everything what he has said, and my key takeaways. One would be the product mindset, and second would be the adaptability to change, because that's where the human human interaction plays a major role. So those are my two key takeaways.
Thanks everyone. I think we're top of the hour, but thank you very much for actually joining us today. Whitney is a more easily approachable. I think if there is a week where Whitney is not actually hosting something, very boring weekdays. So he has the enlightening YouTube channel, and also is working with Victor Farsig on the YouTubes for DevOps and all these kind of personas. And Kat is actually joining us for the first time. And hopefully I will inviting you again more. And I think Kat will be actually doing some Twitter spaces, a lot of the engagement in the community, and always I think it recently came from the MS Build and doing all of the conferences. And if Kat is not in the conference, that conference is boring. I can definitely.
Oh, well, then apparently all KubeCons are just completely not worth going to, because I've never been to a KubeCon. However, I will be at the KubeCon in Salt Lake City. So I expect to see a ton of people that I've never met in real life there.
See you there.
Wow.
See you there. See you there.
Okay.
So
It's the KubeCon worth going to, because I'll be there.
So till then, we are the only two person on this panelist that never attended any KubeCon as well.
Yep.
And David is, I see, he's also running platform Lean Coffee Chat. It happening tomorrow 8 a.m. And we have always bunch of folks talking about their cloud native or their platform engineering journey. And we spend a lot of time with the CNCF platform working group, or some of the article we wrote around platform engineering maturity model and platform definition white paper. And new one I think will be coming up, might be in KubeCon Salt Lake on platform as a product. And Vamshi, I know you've been there in the platform engineering day in KubeCon Paris. I think you presented some talk there as well. Is your plan to be attending the platform engineering day again?
Yes, I'll be there. I'll be there in Salt Lake City. Can't wait to meet Kate. If you're there, Whitney and Simon, this time, hope at least you'll make it.
I will try my best, absolutely. But thanks, Vamshi, you have some trouble joining it, but thanks for actually joining us. You're in the traveling mode, but it's been a great talking to you with all of you as well. Thanks for actually sharing your insight. And I will love the appreciation in the YouTube chat descriptions. Thanks, Scoreless, Tim Banks, and other for you sharing your valuable thoughts on the chat description as well. This is part one of my curiosity of why everybody investing time in platform engineering. I know a little bit great about platform engineering, and that's mean I will be investing more time on the platform engineering day, platform engineering. And that's why there's a new platform engineering panel talk happening next Tuesday with Jennifer Wittigins and Romero and a bunch of other folks from the different industry. And they will be talking about similar concept and rather more challenging questions for them as well. But till then, thank you, Whitney, for hosting another show with me on this YouTube channel. I will keep you busy with the rest of the year as well. And thank you, Kat. Thank you, David. And thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you all. Thanks
for having us.